Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us on this SAG-AFTRA live stream on YouTube. To stay informed about all of our live stream and video events, we invite you to subscribe to this channel. You can go ahead and do that right now. Today, we present the President's Task Force on Education, Outreach, and Engagement live stream, Contracts for Future Filmmakers. We'll be pausing throughout as we'll have a pair of interpreters, Mara Bassani Santamaria and Sharon Pierre-Louis, here with us today to translate into American Sign Language. Mara and Sharon will be switching off periodically throughout today's discussion. The presentation will begin momentarily. If you have questions that you'd like us to direct to us, to our guest today, please email us at pteoe@sagaftra.org. That's pteoe@sagaftra.org. As a reminder, today's program is being recorded, and you can watch the replay right here on SAG-AFTRA's YouTube channel, along with much more great content. Now, please give a warm welcome to today's host, SAG-AFTRA Executive Vice President and New York Local President, Rebecca Damon.
Thank you very much, Damon. Good to see you. Hello, everybody. Hope you all are doing well today as you've joined us. We have a really exciting presentation with us today. This conversation is Contract for Future Filmmakers. We put this event together really in mind for student filmmakers who are seeking a career in entertainment, though we really want to make sure that it might also be a refresher course for anyone who's looking to learn about distinctions between each of the entertainment contracts that SAG-AFTRA has available to you. Our goal is to really have people understand the business of filmmaking and to help kickstart your career by learning one of the most important tools in creating your own content, which is these entertainment contracts. In the discussion today, we're going to walk through SAG-AFTRA's different types of entertainment contracts and give insight into which ones would be most beneficial to your student, short, feature film, or new media project. SAG-AFTRA offers these contracts and low-budget agreements with input from both members, actors, filmmakers, to make it easier to hire professional performers. So this was a real labor of love and a real collaboration from the members. As you're starting your career, obviously there's lots to learn about the industry and becoming a filmmaker. And we know we have so many members that are also actor hyphenates. And so it's really good to have all of you with us today. We hope that this program is going to help you plan for your future needs. And SAG-AFTRA is here to help you navigate this complex world of first time and maybe returning exposure to the union. This union, SAG-AFTRA, is here for you, and we want to be that resource. If you are here for the very first time, and this is your first exposure to the union, please visit us at sagaftra.org. That's sagaftra.org. As most of you probably know, we represent approximately 160,000 actors, broadcasters, announcers, dancers, DJs, news writers, program hosts, puppeteers, recording artists, stunt performers, singers, dancers, you name it, other media professionals that you may come upon in your career. And so you are in the right place if you are watching our program today. I want to point out that in our role, which is sometimes different from other entertainment unions that you may also be learning about, SAG-AFTRA negotiates contracts that cover the work of media professionals both in front of a camera and behind a microphone. And our team here, our great staff team, really looks forward to working with you as your career takes off. We are joined by our colleagues today, Stephanie Perry, SAG-AFTRA National Director, Entertainment Contracts, Jessica Johnson, SAG-AFTRA Director, Entertainment Contracts, along with Lorna Badeo, SAG-AFTRA Senior Manager, Entertainment Contracts. Together, they're going to take you through all of the highlights of each of our contracts to make sure that the information that's most relevant to you will be available so you can have a better understanding of why these contracts will be useful and an important part of your budding careers. So for those of you that are watching online, if you have any questions that you'd like to submit, we'll try to get to as many as we can. Please email pteoe@sagaftra.org, and that's pteoe@sagaftra.org. With that said, I'm going to pass everything over to our team so they can take it away. It is so nice to see you all and good to be joining you virtually today. So I'm going to toss it over to you all.
Thank you so much, Rebecca. We're so happy to be here and so excited to talk to this group. You all deserve extra credit for going above and beyond and coming to learn about the contracts that are available to you. We do have a slide presentation that we're going to put up for a little more information for you. So Stephanie, if you want to go ahead and launch that, and we'll start going through. You know, as Rebecca mentioned, we're going to talk to you about the entertainment contracts that are available to you. You know, we have a lot to offer at SAG-AFTRA, so there are other contracts for, you know, separate presentations such as commercials and video games and things of that nature. But we're going to go through the entertainment contracts, the type of thing that you'd use for a movie theater or a film festival or new media. You know, you're going to put it on YouTube, something like that. So we're going to talk about all of those. We're going to start by taking a step back first, though. The first question is, why would I even come to SAG-AFTRA? You know, why would I enter into one of these contracts in order to make my movie? And the simple answer is because you want to use a SAG-AFTRA member in your production. You know, SAG-AFTRA members have a lot to bring to production. You know, they're professional performers that really help, you know, make a great production, make a great series or movie, and, you know, can really bring your project to the next level. However, when somebody joins SAG-AFTRA, they sign on to the SAG-AFTRA membership rules, and Rule 1 is what you're seeing on the screen now. In short, basically what this says is that SAG-AFTRA members agree to work on union projects only where there's union coverage. Therefore, if you want to have one of those SAG-AFTRA members on your production, you would need to sign a union contract as well. As you can see in this Rule 1, it does apply across the globe. So whether you're producing in the United States or somewhere else, we do have a contract available that will allow you to use SAG-AFTRA members. We'll go ahead to the next slide. As I mentioned, there's no need to worry. We definitely have an agreement for you. You're going to hear about a number of agreements today that are available to producers at all different budget levels. We absolutely understand that, you know, the needs of a $5,000 short film are very different than the needs of a $50 million feature film, and the agreements are designed to address that. So there's a wide array. There's even more than we'll talk about today, but today we're going to hit the most frequently used contracts for you know, up and coming producers. Something that Rebecca mentioned to dig in a little bit more on is we do have, you know, two different kinds of agreements. Some of our agreements are negotiated while others are promulgated. Simply put, what that means is negotiated contracts are ones that we go and bargain with a bargaining partner. You know, many of the entertainment contracts are negotiated with the AMPTP, the Alliance of Motion Picture and Television Producers, which consists of a lot of the major studios I'm sure you all have heard of. So we go and we enter into negotiations to come up with agreements that work at that level. We'll talk about them a little more towards the end of the presentation. Other agreements are promulgated. Those are the ones that Rebecca was talking about, that members come together and really design what contract works best for the type of performance they give in different areas. So to kick it off, I'm going to hand it over to Stephanie to start telling you a little bit more about some of the promulgated agreements.
Oh, Zoom world, I wasn't unmuted, but I am now. Thank you, Jessica. And I'm going to start off by introducing you to our newest contract to the entertainment contracts family, and that is our micro budget project agreement. You have actually talked to us and we have heard you and we've answered that call. As Jessica said, there is a difference between a project that has a $500 budget versus a $500 million. And this agreement really nicely fits with those producers who are starting that introductory agreement and would like to work with SAG-AFTRA union performers. Some of the requisites is that this agreement for this shooting has to be placed entirely in the United States. The budget is a $20,000 cap per picture or per episode. There is no maximum runtime length. It can be any time. This is a live action, so it does not really be appropriate for anyone who's looking to do animation. There are completely negotiable terms with all of the performers. It does have some limited exhibition, so we are looking to free-to-consumer platforms and film festivals, things of that nature and type. And one of the key parts of this micro budget agreement is that it really is for the producer who does not have any type of distribution, any deals where you're going to receive any type of compensation for your project. There is no student stunts. There is no nudity or simulated sex or anything of that nature. It's no audio only projects. It would not be appropriate if you're looking for something that would be traditionally covered under the commercials or the co-ed agreement or our new branded influencer content agreement. And of course, not for video games. It's not intended for music videos. And of course, this is a promulgated agreement, so it is for independent producers. So it would not be appropriate if you do have any affiliation with an AMPTP company. So you want to start to think of some of the majors, Sony or Paramount. And one of the great things about the micro budget project agreement that we get a lot of this questions about is that, yes, student producers can avail themselves of this agreement as well. Our next agreement that I'm sure many of you are familiar with is our student film agreement. And just like our micro budget project agreement, the shooting does need to take place entirely in the US, and there is a runtime, which is 35 minutes, and it does have a budget cap of $35,000. One of the many, I think, wonderful attributes of this agreement is that it does allow for you to have deferrable rates, but there is a carve out here, and that is stunt coordinators. That rate would be paid pursuant to our full basic agreement. And of course, this is for exhibition for class credit and classrooms. And now I'm going to introduce the lovely Lorna Badeo.
Thank you, Steph. I'm going to go through a handful of our other low budget agreements that we offer here at SAG-AFTRA. And I'm going to start out with the SPA. Next slide, please. So one of our most widely used contracts is the short project agreement, or as we lovingly refer to it as SPA. This is an agreement that is often used by many of our student producers who have since graduated from their college, university, or even high school experiences as a student producer. And they want to start moving into the meatier contracts that SAG-AFTRA offers. And one of the first ones in what we lovingly call as the platform agnostic slate of agreements that we have is the short project agreement. So what is it? It is what kind of projects, can sign to the short project agreement. So we have a maximum running time of 40 minutes, a maximum total budget. So $50,000 is your ceiling. And your maximum shooting schedule for these types of projects are 30 days of principal photography, and it doesn't include any retakes or looping that you may need to do once you're going through that editing post-production phase. Just like every single one of our low budget agreements, these projects have to be shot entirely within the United States. And an important part of SPA is that it's not intended for any projects that are covered by any other SAG-AFTRA agreement, such as animated projects, television or new media series, video games, and student films. So producers should really be sure of what the intention for your project is before deciding whether or not the SPA is the most appropriate for you versus a micro budget, let's say, or the student film agreement. Many of you may have previously worked under the short film agreement. And so a lot of questions that we get surrounding the SPA is it like the short film agreement? The SPA brings together some of the best aspects of the predecessor agreement, the short film agreement, and the low budget new media agreement. So the short film agreement has been retired and replaced by the SPA. And while we do have some low budget new media agreements, which Jessica will go through a little bit later, those agreements remain available for series or episodic works. So I did want to hit on a couple of important aspects for the SPA, and that is that there are a number of differences to be found in SPA. So the scope of the exhibition on the SPA includes film festivals, free to consumer new media platforms like Vimeo or YouTube, screening for Academy Award consideration, non-public talent showcases. So think of demo agreements. Let's say you're not quite ready to shoot your feature film, or you want to get out there on GoFundMe or Kickstarter. You can use the SPA for that kind of work. And also true public access television for up to a year. A big reminder, subsequent use beyond the included exhibition rights will trigger residuals for the principal performers. So be sure you pay attention to that. And obviously we're here as SAG-AFTRA to help you through any questions that you have on this. There is coverage of background actors in background zones. So that is another thing to pay attention to. So who's covered? How much do they get paid on the SPA? SPA covers all principal performers. They are negotiable rates except for our stunt coordinators. Safety first. So our stunt coordinators are highly trained, highly skilled, and they are there to ensure the protection of everyone on set. So just so you know, the stunt coordinator rates are the basic rates that apply, and all other rates are negotiable. And as previously mentioned, this is platform agnostic. We are definitely paying attention out there that the landscape has changed over the years, and you may be producing a project that you're not quite sure. Is this going to go to a film festival? Am I putting it on my YouTube channel? So we are definitely hearing you, and you can put it on these certain platforms. Next slide, please. The Ultra Low Budget Project Agreement, UPA, previously known as the ULB. So many of you may have also produced under the old ULB, but now we've updated it. We've brushed a little dust off of it, again, paying attention to the ever-changing landscape that is filmmaking, pilot producing, and we have the UPA. Now, different from the old ULB, where there was a $250,000 ceiling, we have increased that maximum budget to $300,000. We've also created a rate scale. So 20% of scale of the basic rates, which currently is $1,030. So 20% of that is the current day rate for the UPA is now $206 a day. Pay attention to July 1st because those rates will be changing. Again, safety first, our stunt coordinators will be making the basic rates, so they don't have that low budget rate. And the coverage for the UPAs are professional principal performers. This still means that you can hire both union and non-union performers. Our contract does cover all professional performers in a principal role. Again, this is platform agnostic. So when you are making this production, we're not going to be asking you, what is your initial exhibition? What we want to pay attention to is that you are shooting in the United States. Your maximum budget is under that $300,000 ceiling. And there is no runtime on the UPA as well. Next slide, please. The moderate low budget project agreement. So we are still here in this feature world. We are going into a meteor contract now, again, still here in the United States, filmed entirely in the United States. Previously, under the moniker of the MLB, the Modified Low Budget Agreement, we are switching it up with the platform agnostic, with the MPA, and the ceiling has still remained at $700,000. It is 35% of scale, so currently the day rate is $361 a day, and stunt coordinators are still getting that full basic scale rate. Here's where we are now covering all principal performers. This is where the Taft-Hartleys start coming into play in union security. Incentives are available under the MPA, and what does that mean? It means that the union is taking into consideration how you are casting your film. So we have the background actors incentive. We have the diversity in casting incentive. It actually gives you the ability to raise that maximum budget ceiling higher. So we can get up to $950,000 with the diversity in casting incentive. But what it doesn't do is push you into the next budget threshold where your day rate has now gone up for your performers. We have a lot more information on the diversity and casting incentive and the background actors incentive on our website at sagaftra.org. And again, just to emphasize, this is platform agnostic. You don't have to commit to telling the union whether you are intended for a theatrical release, if you are an on-spec production, if this is a pilot that you are experimenting with and hoping to sell to a distributor. And I will kick the next slide over to Stephanie.
And I'm going to get that right at some point during this conversation and take myself off of mute. So here's our next agreement, the low budget theatrical agreement, which we also refer to as the LBA. And again, to emphasize, as Lorna said, all of our low budget agreements do have the requirement that the filming take place entirely in the United States. This has a $2 million maximum budget. The day rate is a percentage of our basic agreement rates, and that is 65% of scale. That scale being based on our full contract minimums, which is currently $670 per day. Again, we do have the carve out. Stunt coordinators are paid at the full rates under the basic agreement. And the coverage, just as it is with the MPA, is all principal performers. Of course, this is a little bit different now with background, where with the MPA, you have the ability to avail yourself of the diversity casting incentive and also the background actor incentive. Here, under the LPA, it is a requirement that you cover background, and that is the first 30 per day where we have jurisdiction. Still, the incentive for diversity in casting also exists under the LPA. And with this agreement, just as it indicates in its name, low budget theatrical, you are required to have a theatrical release. Just pointing out the distinction with some of our previous agreements that we just talked about, which are platform agnostic. And now I'm going to turn it over back to Jessica.
Thank you so much, Lorna and Stephanie. Now, a little different, new media. One question that we get a lot is, what is new media? And the answer to that is it's a lot of things. It could be your social media, it could be your Instagram or your Facebook or your TikTok. It could also be, those big platforms that, we've all taken such advantage of during quarantine and pandemic, Netflix, Hulu, Amazon, that sort of thing, Paramount Plus, all of them, Apple, there's a ton out there. So new media means a lot of things. As Lorna and Stephanie mentioned, a lot of the feature agreements that we already talked about do allow for some new media exhibition with that platform agnostic concept. But not everything falls into those categories that we already talked about. Series are a great example. Or if you have a single that's going to new media that's above that threshold for the moderate low budget agreement, and push you up to the next level where there isn't a platform agnostic agreement, we of course have options for that area as well. Another thing that's interesting in new media is that there's a wide array of kind of subcategories. First thing to mention is that we have both original and derivative new media content. Original is a brand new idea, something that hasn't been seen before. The great thing about all of you that are listening to this presentation is you're so creative and you come up with so many ideas, and there's always something new and different that you're going to put together. So that would be original, brand new idea. The other thing that's common in the new media world is derivative series. Derivative series are something that's based on a pre-existing television show or movie. I'm sure you're all familiar with those. It's so exciting when you get like the new media reboot of an old show, something that brings back memories, or maybe it's a slightly different storyline in the same universe. So derivative content exists in the new media world as well. Another breakdown that we have is dramatic and non-dramatic. Those terms are a little bit of a misnomer. It's not to say that there's some drama and some comedy, though there is. We're really more talking about a distinction between like scripted and unscripted content. And I'm sure we could do a whole nother presentation on the origins of that concept and how it comes out of the two great unions, SAG and AFTRA, coming together, and what that means. But we won't go too far down that rabbit hole today, other than to say, I'll first talk a little bit about the dramatic new media agreements and then tell you a little bit about the non-dramatic new media agreements. Starting with dramatic, we have the low budget new media agreement. This is really going to be the SPA equivalent for series. So it's similar to what you saw before. It's a $50,000 an episode maximum budget. There are deferrable rates available. Rates remain deferred as long as you stay on free to the consumer new media. The great thing is that the agreement already provides for the circumstance where you get some sort of bigger and better distribution. We definitely are super supportive when one of your projects is successful and a SVOD platform comes calling. That's great news for everyone involved. We love to see the further distribution. And the great thing is that the actors share in the success there, in that it triggers the deferments and some residuals. As with all of the other agreements that were mentioned, safety is a high priority. So the stunt coordinators are paid full television agreement rates under this agreement as well. Like Lorna and Stephanie mentioned, they're there for the safety of not only the stunt performers, but also everyone around the stunt performers. And that's really important on a set, as you all know. So low budget new media is kind of that SPA equivalent. Then we have the special new media agreement. The special new media agreement has 4 or 5 really different tiers within it. We take a look at your project to see which one applies best. If you looked really closely, you'd probably find a lot of similarity between the tiers in the special new media agreement and those UPA, MPA, LBA tiers that Lorna and Stephanie just talked to you about. So there's consistency between those, but you will find that the special new media agreement is a little different. At the lower tiers, it's available for episodic content. Of course, if you're making a single or feature, whatever word you want to use for that, we have all of those great platform agnostic agreements available to you. But if you're making a lower budgeted series, the special new media agreement is available. Once you get up a little higher and you kind of move budget-wise out of the UPA and MPA, and you move into an agreement like the LBA that has theatrical release requirements. If you're not looking to go theatrical, you're looking to go new media, the special new media agreement is for you. It goes all the way up to the highest tier of the special new media agreement, incorporates the television agreement. So it's basically as if you're producing a full budget picture, all housed in that special new media agreement. It's also another area, it's called high budget SVOD. This is something that also has full budget television rates. In order to qualify as high budget SVOD, there's kind of three prongs, 3 tests that have to be met. One, you have to be going to an SVOD platform. So that's subscription video on demand, something where consumers pay to view the content. It's not something where it's free. So it's not Instagram, it's not Facebook, it's not YouTube, where anybody could log on and maybe they have to make a free account, but without paying, they can see your content. Other examples of AVOD, even IMDb TV is currently free to the consumer. So there's a lot of AVOD platforms out there. AVOD being advertisement supported video on demand. So again, just to backtrack, if you're going to AVOD or free to the consumer new media, you are not going to SVOD, and therefore you wouldn't qualify for the high budget SVOD agreement. Another tier is budget. The budget tiers for high budget SVOD depend on runtime. These are all found within the television agreement and codified basic agreement. We don't anticipate that your first project out of the gate after school will be in the high budget SVOD world, but if it is, please do feel free to contact us and we'll walk you through some of the details on that. But that's probably a couple of years out for you, but we're so excited for you to get to those too. The last requirement is runtime. It does require 20-minute episodes. It works a little different in animation because animation has shorter episodes that are often paired together. Again, we could probably talk for a few hours about animation. So if you are a producer of animated content, we'd be happy to talk to you about that separately as well. But we just wanted to give you an introduction in this presentation. So again, 3 criteria for high budget SVOD relate to where you're exhibiting, how much money, the budget of the production, also the runtime, and that triggers full television agreement rates. So like I just said, if you don't meet those high budget SVOD criteria, it doesn't mean we don't have an agreement for you. We do. It's that special new media agreement that I just mentioned. So that's kind of the universe of your scripted new media content. Of course, there's always exceptions, always something different that we can always make work. We understand, like I said, you're creative and you have new ideas. So if your project doesn't really seem to fit into one of these bullet points, don't be afraid to call us. We probably have something else that we can make work for you. And now we'll go to the next slide. So non-dramatic new media. As I mentioned, dramatic is a kind of confusing term sometimes. This doesn't mean that that there's not drama involved. There's often drama in these type of shows. But it includes things like reality shows, game shows, competition shows, award shows, talk shows, variety shows, everything like that. It's kind of less of the continuing storyline throughout an episode that you'd see in dramatic content, and more something, something that just has little skits or pieces that go together. When you have a non-dramatic new media project, we definitely encourage you to submit it as early as possible so we can take a look at it. We do have an array of agreements. Kind of the two most common are a negotiable non-dramatic new media agreement, and then a non-dramatic new media agreement that incorporates the full terms of the network code. The network code, we'll mention that a little bit in I think the next slide or coming up shortly. But the network code is the full terms agreement for non-dramatic content. So again, you have a negotiable one where you can set rates that's typically reserved for lower budget content, and then you have the full network code agreement and some variation in the middle depending on what you're making. So we definitely recommend you reach out, submit an application if we're going to make a non-dramatic new media program, and we'll find an agreement that works right for you. I think we can go on to the next slide. Yes, and as I mentioned, now talking about the negotiated agreements. So all of the agreements from micro on up that we just talked about are promulgated agreements. And as we discussed at the beginning and Rebecca mentioned, those are the agreements that members work very hard to come up with things that fit right for low budget independent producers. We want to make sure that we have an agreement for everyone. So we promulgate all of those agreements and offer them to independent producers that qualify. The negotiated agreements, as I mentioned, are the ones where we have a bargaining partner in the industry, and we go, typically on 3-year cycles, sometimes a little longer, sometimes a little shorter, go out and negotiate an agreement that'll last for that period of time and sets out the terms for the term, all of the rules that'll apply for that next period. One you might have heard of is known as the Producer SAG-AFTRA Codified Basic Agreement. It's also called the CBA. This one is, in shorthand, often referred to as the theatrical agreement. If you've ever seen it, it's quite long. It's 700 or 800 pages. It's a pretty thick book, but it has lots of interesting material in it. This is available to, obviously the AMPTP companies. The term signatories use this. That's big studios. But it also might apply if you're making a project that has a budget higher than the low budget agreement that Stephanie talked about. Or it could apply if you have a project that you're shooting outside of the United States. If you're going to make your feature film in a different country, the Codified Basic Agreement is for you. If you're making an animated feature that's going to movie theaters, the Codified Basic Agreement is for you. So it does apply even to up and coming kind of first time filmmakers. There are circumstances where you use the Codified Basic Agreement. Don't be scared of it. It has a lot of pages, but it's workable. If you are really interested in reading through it, I'll give you a little hint. The way that it's set up is that it starts with some general provisions that apply across the board to everyone, and then it's broken down into schedules. The schedules are the working conditions specific to certain types of employment. So you might have the working conditions specific to a day player, or specific to a background actor, or specific to a singer, or a dancer, or a stunt performer, or a stunt coordinator. So you'll check out the titles of all of those schedules, and you'll see that they're very specific to certain types of work. Again, it's a long agreement, and I wouldn't blame you for not wanting to sit down and read through the whole thing. But if you do, there's a lot to learn in there. And again, we're always happy to answer questions on that as well. The next negotiated agreement that I'll talk about is the SAG-AFTRA Television Agreement, often called the TVA. The television agreement is typically negotiated at the same time as the CBA. They're done together. In fact, if you take a look at the production center on the SAG-AFTRA.org website, and you look at the agreements that are available, you'll see that when we negotiate a new agreement, the new version of the CBA and the television agreement, The changes are first encapsulated in a memorandum of agreement, and they're all together. So if you went right now, you would find the 2014 Codified Basic Agreement on the website and the 2014 Television Agreement on the website. But then you would find a 2017 Memorandum of Agreement and a 2020 Memorandum of Agreement that show the changes that were negotiated to those larger books in those two negotiation cycles. The SAG-AFTRA Television Agreement works as a modification of the CBA for productions that are intended for television and new media. If something isn't addressed in the television agreement, you go back to that CBA. So that's why the television agreement is a little shorter. It's only 300 or 400 pages, but you do get to kind of plop it on top of the 700-page CBA. So we do like a lot of terms in there. There's a lot to learn. It's meaty, but the television agreement brings in things that aren't addressed in the CBA. For example, how you hire a series regular. You have no need to hire a series regular on a feature because it's a one and done situation. But when you move into the television world or the series world, you often want to hire some series regulars, and you might want to introduce ideas like options where you might bring them back for a subsequent season. So there's some extra terms that come in the television agreement that help speak to the slightly different world of television and episodic media. The television agreement has two side letters referred to as the new media side letters. They are side letters H and I in the television agreement. You can also find them in the CBA as side letters 21 and 22. These are the side letters that speak to programs made for new media and also programs that are exhibited on new media. As we all know, a lot of old productions have come back to life on streaming platforms. Things that you haven't seen in 10 or 15 or 20 years are now available for your viewing at any time on a streaming platform. So the side letters speak to the residuals and things that apply to that type of exhibition. The new media side letters is also where you'd find those criteria for what constitutes a high budget SVOD that I talked about on the prior slide. Again, if you take a look at the side letters, there's a lot of material there. We can have a whole separate conversation on that. But if you have questions, let us know. And again, we don't anticipate that this is where you would start as your first production. It's possible your first production out of school would be under one of these agreements, but it's more than likely that you might start with something like what we mentioned in the promulgated agreement world. So that's probably more relevant to you. But if you are going big right out the gate, let us know, and we would be happy to tell you a little more about those agreements. And finally, we have the SAG-AFTRA National Code of Fair Practices for Network Television Broadcasting that we negotiate. This is called the Network Code. It's negotiated with a slightly different group of producers than the CBA and the television agreement. It's the networks that you're familiar with that have been around for a long time. That's the agreement that generally applies to non-dramatic programming, like I mentioned on the slide before. Your talk shows, your late night comedians that we all love to watch, that would fall under those agreements. Some game shows, some variety shows, some competition shows, that sort of thing. The network code also incorporates the provisions for daytime serials, which we all know as soap operas. So if you are getting into the soap opera world, the network code would also be an interesting read for you, I'm sure. Because it's a different kind of programming, the network code is set up in a very different way. The structure of payment is very different from what you might see in the CBA and television agreement. So again, if that's the universe that you're entering as a producer, we definitely have some great contacts for you within SAG-AFTRA that can help you understand that a little better. So reach out to us separately if you have some questions on that. But just know that the network code is another agreement that's out there. And as I mentioned, some of the new media agreements do incorporate the terms of the network code. So that's important as well in the new media world. The network code also has new media side letters similar to the CBA and the television agreement. So there's terms for how things work in the new media world as well within the network code. All right, now I'm going to hand it back to Lorna and Stephanie to tell you more about how you become signatory to one of these agreements. You're ready to go. You want to hire SAG-AFTRA members. You have an idea of what agreement might apply. This is how you do it. They're going to mention that the process is a little different for different budget levels. We acknowledge, again, the differences between a very small, low budget project and a multi-million-dollar feature. So they'll tell you a little bit about that. It's not intended to be scary. We have a lot of producers out there that, will be happy to tell you that they've done it and it's easy and it's workable and everyone can do it. So, just take a listen to what they're going to tell you and don't worry. We know you can do it. We want to work with you. We want to see our SAG-AFTRA members on screen as much as possible. So, we are excited for you to start the signatory process. Now I'll hand it off to Lorna and Stephanie.
Thank you, Jessica. Just like Jessica said, you've decided, let's say that you know exactly which contract appeals to you and what will work and be appropriate for the project that you want to make, whether it is a single one production only feature or single, it could be used vice versa, or an episodic or, a non-animated project that you have, or let's say you still want to talk to the union and try and figure out those details, what works best for your project. We are going to help you through the process, and it is known as a signatory process, but please know that you are not alone going through this process. We are happy to hop on the phone with you, give you extra details or tips or tricks via email, but just know that we are here to guide you through not only the beginning process of the signatory process, but throughout your production as a whole. We have the same goal as you, and that is to make a fantastic piece of work where our members get to show off their skills for you and share their art with the world. So let's begin with submitting a signatory application. It was previously known as, and it's still known as well as the preliminary information form. It's known as that for other contracts that we have in other departments here at SAG-AFTRA. But we have listened to many folks out there in the independent producing world that we want something easy, something we can do online, and we are happy to provide that for you. It is the signatory application that is available at the production center on sagaftra.org. And what we've done with the signatory application is we have consolidated so much of the paperwork that we used to ask of our producers via zip files or emails back and forth. And so we have decided to let's get all the information up front from you, and let's try and make this process streamlined and efficient so that we can get through and get you to work as soon as possible. So the signatory application will ask you basic things like, what is the name of your project? Include any AKAs that you have. Who is the producer, aka who is the employer of record for us? Who's actually engaging our members? So it could be you as an individual, which is allowed under many of our agreements. It can be you as a DBA, so a fictitious name that you're using, or it can be a single purpose vehicle or single purpose production company like Lorna's Films LLC. That can be your production name as well. So be sure to be ready with your government issued ID card if you are producing as an individual. This is very important for those of you who are student filmmakers out there. You're going to have your student ID ready, as well as your government issued ID, whether you want to use a driver's license or a passport or visa, any kind of picture ID that you have handy. If you are producing as a corporate entity, then you're going to have those corporate formation documents handy to upload to the website. And that would include your articles of organization, articles of incorporation, and the like, and have those operating agreements ready so that we can verify that you are the person who should be signing our agreements on behalf of the company. What's also included in the signatory application is something really important, especially in this COVID era that we are, going through, and hopefully we'll be able to see the other side of this soon. But it is a health and safety questionnaire. We're going to be asking you specifics as far as whether you are testing, whether you are abiding by the safety zones, right? There's zone A and B. A lot of the information on the health and safety questionnaire can be found on our website, but please don't hesitate to call us if you have any questions about the kinds of things that you need to prepare for before you start filling out the signatory application. It's a pretty easy application. We've had many folks go through this process, and if there are any issues, again, we're here to help you through it. So be sure you also have your detailed line item budget ready. Your script with the title page attached to your script. We do like to review those scripts just to ensure that any stunts, nudity, any of those issues that we may flag to maybe ask you about, to make sure that everything is all good with the production. We'll be asking you to submit a pre-production cast list. What's interesting and new about our new signatory application is that you can fill out the pre-production cast list within the application itself. You also have the option of doing it the old school way, which is waiting for your business representative to hand you a PDF of the pre-production cast list via email. You can also download it from our website and fill it out that way and submit it with your application. But we have various ways for you to hand over information that's required as you're going through the signatory application. So like I said, you're never alone during the signatory process. You are assigned 2 business representatives from our department, and that is a signatory representative and a contracts representative. Your point of contact during the signatory process is that signatory business representative, and they will walk you through the signatory application should you need that initial help. You'll have a signatory representative, though, specifically assigned once your production comes to the union via that application process. They will work with you with the pre-production cast list, making sure your paperwork is filled out correctly, making sure you sign the required documentation, and get you to that very important clearance process. Just a friendly reminder, just because you submit a signatory application does not mean you are cleared to work with our SAG-AFTRA members. You'll wait for an official formal clearance from your SAG-AFTRA business representative that says you are good to go, and they will hand you over the production paperwork that you're going to need on your production, like the time reports, also known as Exhibit Gs, the templates for your performer contracts, a final cast list, and casting data reports. And your business representative will put all kinds of information, instructions on how to send paperwork back to the union when that time comes. There's also, as you move into upper budgets, so those would be the UPA, the ultra low budget project agreement, or the moderate low budget project agreement, or the low budget agreement itself. There are additional requirements on these more meatier agreements, these meatier contracts where you are paying our members. There's no deferred rates. You are paying at least a minimum rate to our performers. And so on something like the UPA, you'll be required to post a security deposit amount, and that's roughly 40%, and it could be as large as 100% of the cast budget, depending on your project. But again, you are going to definitely speak with your assigned business representative to help you through the process of what a security deposit entails. On your larger films, so once you're moving into that MPA, LBA level, we're going to be asking you for chain of title. What is chain of title in a nutshell? It is following a chain of ownership rights in and to that script up until who is making it. Does the person who's producing this, engaging our members, have the rights to make this film? Who truly is the producer? So we're going to follow that chain from the author to the person or entity that purchased those script rights, to the producer who's now producing it, to the financier who's financing your film. So we're going to take a look at that paperwork, and we're going to ask you for some additional documents. And it could be something like a security agreement. We take liens in some of our films and some of our productions, and much like you take a lien in a home. So we take a lien in these films. And so, it's a case by case and film by film, project by project basis that the union will go ahead and and review your paperwork and just to make sure what exactly is required of your production. So please just make sure that you know that we are here to help you through the signatory process, and we are going to make this as streamlined, efficient as possible for you. And I will kick it over to the next slide. Again, for more information on how to submit your project, please visit the Production Center at sagaftra.org/production-center. For more information, you'll find samples of many of our agreements to read through. And again, we're always here for you to call, to email, and happy to help. Next slide, please.
And I know we're about to take questions, but I just wanted to add in that I think we're already getting some feedback with some excitement around the micro budget agreement. We're so excited about that too. That is our newest agreement. One thing we do want to mention is that the micro budget agreement isn't for everyone, as much as we love it. As you've heard, we have so many agreements here, so there is something that'll work for your project. But if you're looking to go to any sort of paid platform with your project, micro doesn't really work for you. Micro is good for projects that are going to free to consumer new media. So that's the AVOD I talked about. You're going to put it on social media or YouTube. It's not good for something like Amazon Prime or Netflix or Hulu. We have tons of other agreements that you saw that work for that. Micro can go to film festivals. It can be used as a demo. You want to showcase your talent. What a great director, producer, actor, whatever you are, or all of those. We know you wear all of those hats sometimes. Micro is great for demo purposes. If you want to submit it for Academy Award consideration, you can do the screenings that you have to do in order to qualify for that consideration. You can put it on public access television for 1 year. That's true public access, not public broadcasting. So just be careful. There's a little difference there. And also, as Stephanie mentioned, you can use it in the classroom. So if you are trying to make one of your student projects, the micro budget agreement is great for you. We're happy to answer more questions about micro, but I also want to let you know that if you go check out the videos on this YouTube channel, you will find that we did a whole presentation about the micro budget agreement. So you can really dig in and learn more about that. Or that website that Lorna just mentioned, the Production Center. There's a whole page about the micro budget agreement there. I'll give you a little secret though. If you go to sagaftra.org/micro, it'll take you right to the micro page and you can learn some more about that agreement. But just wanted to let you know, it's a great agreement and we love it and it's so exciting, but it's not for everyone and that's okay. We are happy to see projects go on to achieve commercial success and we have plenty of agreements for that as well.
But I would like to add too, Jessica, on the upside, I was speaking with a filmmaker this morning, and he had specific questions about the micro. And it does work a little bit differently, the signatory process, because there's a title registration and you do it all completely online. It's so streamlined and you can do it 24 hours, 7 days a week, and literally be filming within the next 20 minutes of the registration. And I think the interesting part of it was that the filmmaker kept saying to me, but there's got to be something else, additional paperwork, more leg time, something. And I said, no, absolutely not. It's a fan favorite. It's very, very easy. Again, very streamlined, and it can be completely done online. It's one of the small instances where you're not assigned to business representatives to work with you, but it doesn't mean that you can't reach out to the union, as this filmmaker did this morning, to have a conversation with us even more in detail about the micro versus some of our other budget agreements. But for those reasons, and also the great exhibition platforms that it allows, it's a fantastic agreement.
Oh my gosh, you guys, what a lot of information in a short amount of time. I think this is so exciting because I feel like people really want to be educated and really understand what the options are. And so knowing that there's an option really available for everybody is a great way to look at it. So I'm really glad that you guys totally went down that road of making sure people understand. If this isn't the one for you, there is an agreement for you, and to reach out. So that's great. We did get a lot of questions. So I'm going to try to get through as many of these as we can. Let's just jump right in. People want to know, do I always need to use a SAG-AFTRA contract when shooting a new media project?
Yes, so general answer is yes. There is occasionally an exception, but we'd recommend if you think you fall into an exception to give us a call. But the answer is probably yes. If you're going to have a SAG-AFTRA member in front of the camera or behind a microphone, then a SAG-AFTRA agreement is appropriate. But as you just saw, there are a ton of options, and like Stephanie mentioned, something like the micro budget agreement can be done instantly. So you can be ready to shoot under a cleared SAG-AFTRA contract in 10 minutes if you're ready to go with that one. The other ones take a little longer, so give us some lead time on the other ones, but there are definitely options to enable you to make your new media project under a SAG-AFTRA contract as appropriate.
Yeah, always better to start early, but always better to go union. So very good. That's the next question. It touches on the tutorials in terms of understanding different contracts. You referenced that. Can you go down that road a little bit? A little more about, there's another video and stuff that people can watch. Where can they find it? YouTube, right here, or on the SAG-AFTRA page? Go ahead.
Yeah, just like you said, Rebecca, all the viewers out there, you have started in the right place. There are a number of videos available to you. I think just below, could be above, but I think just below. So, you can learn more about the micro budget agreement. There's also, looking to the future, we're hoping, for more presentations and things like that to come back into being as we move hopefully into this post-COVID world. So keep an eye out on the SAG-AFTRA calendar on the website. There's lots of events hopefully in the not too distant future, and more webinars available. The other thing I'll note for you is there's other resources out there. SAG-Indy is a great one that I want to mention. SAG-Indy operates separately from the union, but they are designed to be a producer resource to help you work through the SAG-AFTRA agreements even bigger and better. So you can check out SAG-Indy on their website and some of the tutorials that they have available. And we work really closely with them. So that's another great place to go. But you're doing the right thing by coming to this presentation today, or if you're watching it later on recorded, coming and visiting it later on. But check out the videos below.
Great. And people can also go to the website, to the video gallery on sagaftra.org. So both YouTube and the website. I was just reminded by one of our fabulous staffers. Okay. Is there ever a time when I need to use multiple contracts on a project I'm shooting?
Well, I think that we would like to avoid a scenario where producers have to do repeated or redundant paperwork, but no, that would be pretty rare. I think it's a call to us if you have a project that could possibly, between budget or maybe certain exhibition platforms, could fall into a different areas. Our goal is to find the one most appropriate agreement to sign you to, and to make sure that you're good to go and it's very clear on what those terms and conditions are. But we would really not want to be in a place where you're signing multiple contracts administered by multiple departments and entertainment contracts. We know you love us, but that may be just a tad bit overkill.
And just to follow up on what Stephanie said, there can be a situation where you want to make a feature or you want to make an episodic series, but you don't quite have the financing to make your full production. So you may be interested in shooting a portion, a demo of your project. And so the spa is the most appropriate for that demo of your project. And then you raise that money, you have that financing available, and now you're ready to shoot the feature length version of this project. So you're signing a new agreement for that feature length. So that would be a case where it's based on the similar project, but they're two different projects happening under two separate agreements. So that's one way where you may think, oh, I have to sign two different agreements. One's a demo, one's the full actual feature, two separate agreements, and we're happy to work with you to figure that out and the timing of all of that as well.
Yeah, that is the thing that I hear the most constantly from members, is that when there is a nuance to this, that they'll call up, get one of you fabulous ladies or your teams on the phone and feel like, oh, okay, now I understand it. So it's great that we can do all this stuff online, and obviously we can do things online at any time of day, any time of night. That's really good, especially for, young content creators to be able to access that. But at the same time, to know that they're available when things are a little more complex, or we need to sort of walk through the nuances of it. So that's terrific. Questions around signatory. So for some people, this is a new word to their vocabulary, and they're not 100% sure what it means. Can you just walk through that a little more in depth?
Yeah, so I think, we could get into the nitty gritty of legal nuances on that, but I don't think that's what you're all asking for. Basically the idea is just that you are signing a contract with the union that sets out the minimum terms and conditions that are going to apply to SAG-AFTRA covered performers on your production. The great thing about almost all of the low budget promulgated agreements is that they're what we call one production only, meaning you are coming into the union and you are agreeing to apply these standards, these working conditions to this one project that you're talking about now. We certainly hope that your next project will also be a union project, and that it will sign to the appropriate agreement. But we understand that early on in your career, you just might not be ready to commit to that yet. You don't know what the next project looks like, or who you might be working with, who your producing partners might be. So there's a lot of unknown in your future. But right now, you know that this project, you want to use SAG-AFTRA members. And so we will sign you to we'll have you sign a contract that applies just for this production. Things are a little different for the big studios that enter into those negotiated agreements with us. Those are term agreements that apply for a period of time over multiple productions, but don't worry so much about that. Just know that when you're coming to us to be signatory, generally speaking, in this low budget world, you are coming to us with one project and you're saying, I am willing to sign this agreement with you, SAG-AFTRA, that says these are the minimum terms and conditions that are going to apply to the actors on my production for this one. And then we'll talk about the next one when the time comes.
Very good. We have another question that says, I'm shooting to satisfy my course requirements. Do student films require a SAG-AFTRA agreement, or is that just for professional work that will be distributed on TV and film?
Great question. And as we've learned today during our presentation, absolutely, we have an agreement pretty much for every type of project. Not part of this presentation, but sometimes I even hear from producers, I'm filming outside of the country. I don't think SAG-AFTRA has an agreement. I actually say we do. So definitely we do have one for students for class credit, or maybe even perhaps if it's about a commercial product. We even in our entertainment contracts in the commercials department have a student film agreement. And yes, you will come to us and we're happy to talk to you about that and help you become signatory.
That's so important that people know to do that. Never too soon to start. Okay, so if I'm planning to be a member of the DGA or the PGA, will I also need to become a member of SAG-AFTRA too? Help. This person wants our help.
Yes. Well, we're happy to help, and we're excited to hear that you're, going to join some of those sister unions. That's a great place to be. So whether you need to become a member of SAG-AFTRA or whether you'll want to become a member of SAG-AFTRA kind of depends on what you're going to do. If you're going to wear all the hats, then you're going to produce and direct and maybe write and become a member of the Writers Guild. If you're also going to pursue a professional acting career, you will likely at some point in your career want to join SAG-AFTRA as an actor. But it's entirely possible that being on camera isn't your thing. You're more of a behind the scenes person. You're gonna do in the example, the directing and the producing, but not so much the acting. That's okay. You don't need to be a member of SAG-AFTRA in order to use one of these contracts as a producer. You can come and, as we talked about earlier, be signatory or sign one of the agreements, no matter what your individual union status is. But if you want to be a professional performer, we'd be happy to have you join the ranks of the 160,000 some members of SAG-AFTRA.
Great. Okay. So this question says, I'm a filmmaker, and when I sign the contract, am I limited to working only with union talent?
Absolutely not. There's a great talent pool out there, and you're absolutely able to work with whoever you like. And as we've gone through with many of the contracts today that we've discussed, there is coverage, obviously, for all of those performers on certain agreements.
Okay, let me go. We've got so many questions. I'm trying to look to these. If I'm creating something for the web, it gets picked up for TV. Will I need to sign a second contract in the event the content has already been produced?
The answer is probably not. It kind of depends on what your first contract was and what that looked like. But more often than not, the way that all of the agreements that we talked about today are designed is that they have the contingency plan built in. We know that production is nothing if not unpredictable. Things always change. Whether you get a different exhibition than you planned, which is great news, or maybe an investor comes in and gives you more money to make your project than you expected. Those things all happen, and the contracts generally speak to what happens. It might be an upgrade where you just apply the terms of the appropriate agreement. If we need you to sign additional paperwork, we'll let you know. There are some circumstances where you do sign some more documents. But generally speaking, you're just applying the correct terms, possibly making some additional payments to the performers. And then residuals, it's a question of what residuals apply moving forward. But really the agreements understand that sometimes things change and they account for that.
And I want to add on to what Jessica said, in particular, specifically to the micro budget project agreement. That is one contract, one agreement where you realize I'm now outside of the scope of the micro budget. Or yes, as Jessica said, you got picked up by a Netflix or an Amazon, and you have that money, that distribution. You're going to come back to the union and we will have you sign the more appropriate agreement in that specific case. But like Jessica said, we have definitely built in those contingency plans within those agreements, and you can take a look at those agreements on the production center if you want to kind of get ready for what those contingencies would be. It's specifically laid out in many of our agreements so that you have a taste of what could happen should you get more financing for your production, and you just have that nice forecasting of what's going to happen.
That's great. Okay, so we have a question about how do these contracts, who sets the terms for these? How are they negotiated, voted on, et cetera? A little bit of a back end process for some of our wonky folks at home. There you go. Go ahead.
Yeah, so we have a couple of different processes. Like we said, the promulgated agreements really are born out of member committees that come together and determine what terms are best apply. Those generally go from spend a lot of time in committee work and ultimately look to the governing body of the national board before we roll them out. The negotiated agreements, as we mentioned, we have industry partners, the studios, producers that we negotiate those agreements with. But again, that's everything is always governed by the experts, the national board that really knows what we need, knows what performers need. So the national board will, sign off on things. You'll see sometimes the larger contracts go out for member votes. You've probably seen some news about that where the membership votes on approving the contract or ratifying the contract is a word that you'll hear a lot. So there's a couple of different processes, but at the end of the day, it's all about the members of SAG-AFTRA making sure that the agreements work for the type of work that they're going to be doing on this production.
Yeah. What's so great about all of these newer agreements too is they're really responsive to member needs and member input, and so many people that are our members who are also writing, producing, directing, all of that sort of input that comes in from members is just so valuable. And so helpful to the process. So, I'm grateful for all the work that our staff does, but I'm also so grateful to the members for all that. We've got time for just one or two more. So, all right. Is there a way for me to go back and see agreements that I've signed? How do I track them? Is there any sort of way to sort of have a repository to cross-check so I don't lose track?
Sure. So whenever you go through the signatory process with the union, let's take a student filmmaker, let's say Jessica was a student filmmaker, and Jessica at Pepperdine, her alma mater, she went ahead and produced a student film and produced multiple. She's actually assigned a signatory identification number. And so let's say she makes multiple productions over the course of her career as a student filmmaker. And she calls us and calls the union and says, by the way, I think I could have sworn I I produced more than 2 films. I could have sworn I did 3 films, but I've lost track of the dozens of other films maybe I've done over my career. She can call the union and say, "Hi, this is Jessica Johnson. I produced this film. Could you maybe tell me all the productions that are connected to my name that I have?" We can absolutely give you that information so that you have that record keeping. We do keep that here at the union, and you are connected to a specific signatory identification number. And a little bit of a preview, we have a producer's portal that will be launching soon. We're really excited about that. And you will have the ability to track yourself on SAG-AFTRA's website via that producer's portal, the breadth of your work that you are producing and the projects associated with you as a producer.
That's great. And we are just at time. So that was such a good full answer. We're going to wrap it there. Do you ladies want to say anything to wrap up before I wrap it up? I'm giving you the last chance, something we missed. We could do this all day. We'll definitely have you back. Education for SAG-AFTRA members is so important, and for future SAG-AFTRA filmmakers equally important. So it's been really great. So I want to just thank you guys for your amazing presentation and the discussion today. I really just think so highly of the work that's being done here and all the work you guys are doing on behalf of the union. I want to thank everybody who has been tuning in each week to the President's Task Force on Education, Outreach, and Engagement, all these live streams. If you haven't done so, you probably did because we talked about it a few times. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel so that you're getting the updates on the content that we're posting, or you can also check out the SAG-AFTRA video gallery. We hope you all are doing well, and we will see you again soon. Thank you very much. Go SAG-AFTRA. Thank you, everybody.